Welcome. Welcome back to A Taste of Justice. I'm Professor Angela Mae Kupenda. Look, I think this series is important for you. It's important for all of us. First, I'm recording these video clips for my students who I am teaching remotely. This semester, I'm teaching First Amendment, a very important and a very timely topic to be teaching at the law school. I want my students to really engage with the topic, not just for the course, not just for the legal profession, but for their communities. I'm encouraging them to take not just a little shower in the law, but to take a soak in the law and the principles of the First Amendment. Second, this series is for all of us. The Preamble to the Constitution of the United States of America says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union and establish justice. And I believe, as Frederick Douglass said, I believe that learning is key. Learning is key to enlightenment, and enlightenment is key to more justice in our society. So my series is designed to provide you with more information about the Constitution, to help you in those lively debates you're having with others and as you shape your own lives, and to further us along on the path to justice, or at least to a taste of justice. So let's get started. As I said, this semester, I will be teaching First Amendment law at Mississippi College School of Law. Let me say, all interpretations, all views, all nuances expressed here are my own. They are not to be ascribed to my school or to my students. I have been a teacher now in a law school, and before that in business schools for 30 years. That's a long time. Okay, so we're going to start with some basic rules of the First Amendment. Some basic rules of the First Amendment. Now, if you Google the First Amendment on your computer, you will find that it is a fairly short amendment. And you said, well, you may think, well, all of my First Amendment speech rights are protected, but not so. This course is going to walk you through an analysis so you can understand more how the court has interpreted the First Amendment, but also we will do some coverage of the religion clauses at the end of the semester. So let's start with some of these basic rules this time, and we'll talk more about the cases in the upcoming clips. So we have 3 basic rules. And okay, I paused. I have my notes here. I want to stay on track. We have 3 basic rules that we're going to talk about today. Then we will expand on those rules in upcoming clips. The first rule is First Amendment rights are not absolute. Now, you may hear people say, and you may have said yourself, that you can say whatever you want to say, wherever you want to say it, and however, because you have a First Amendment right. But no individual rights in the Constitution are absolute. First Amendment rights can also be subjected to governmental regulation, which may include governmental punishment. So you have to remember they are not absolute. And then throughout this course, we're going to see what that means. When does the First Amendment provide more protection and when is certain expression not fully protected by the First Amendment. Okay, now let's go to the second rule. Remember, the first rule is that First Amendment rights are not absolute. Let's go to the second rule. The second rule is this: pure conduct is not protected under the First Amendment. Pure speech is protected under the First Amendment. So if there is something that is purely conduct, then there is no First Amendment protection. But if there is pure speech, then there may be some First Amendment protection. So right now, I can see your mind turning. How do you distinguish between pure conduct, which does not receive that protection, and pure speech, which may be protected under the First Amendment? Look, it gets even complicated than that. Let's say, for example, you wear a jacket in a courthouse, and that jacket has some vulgar language on it, and you're in the presence of the people, of children, of the court, what have you, and you are arrested for wearing that jacket. Now, some people would say that's pure conduct. It is not protected under the First Amendment. Some people will say that's pure speech. It is protected under the First Amendment. And some would argue, is it a mixture of both? Is it expressive conduct, conduct intended to express a message? Let's say you go on some property uninvited. You trespass, you cause some damage. Some people would say that's pure speech. It is not protected under the First Amendment. So, excuse me, that is pure conduct. It is not protected under the First Amendment. Others would say that's pure speech. It is protected under the First Amendment. And some would say, maybe it's in the middle and it gets more protection than pure conduct, but less protection than pure speech. Do you see? Do you see how complicated it gets? Okay, so let's go back over these rules. Then I have the last rule. The first rule, remember, is that First Amendment rights are not absolute. The second rule is pure conduct is not protected under the First Amendment, but pure speech may be protected under the First Amendment. Now, are you having fun yet? Okay, here is the third rule for today. Generally, as a general rule, you hear that a lot in the law, as a general rule, generally, pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government. Let me repeat. As a general rule, pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government. Now, what does that mean? Government cannot say, oh, I don't like what you're saying, Kupenda, so we're going to arrest you. But I like what the other person is saying, So I want to arrest them. Generally, pure speech, if I'm engaging in pure speech, is protected from the government's content regulation, where the government is choosing to protect one message but not the other. Pure speech is generally protected from that regulation. Now, I did say it generally, and there's some more that goes to the rule. You know the word that is coming. Let's say it again. As a general rule, pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government, unless. And there are a lot of unlesses. As a general rule, pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government unless the government meets the most exacting level of scrutiny, okay? So this means government can regulate the content of our speech, but government has to satisfy a very strict test. Government must show that it has a compelling governmental interest and that its restriction on your speech is narrowly tailored to that interest. That is called strict scrutiny. Now, you may want to go, and when you look at the text I have at the bottom of this clip, I direct you back to an earlier video I did that discusses more these levels of scrutiny. So if you weren't with us with the earlier videos, go back and watch that clip and then come back to this point again. Now, let's add another unless. The general rule is pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government unless, let's add another unless government is not really regulating the content of your speech. Government is imposing a content neutral, reasonable time, place, or manner regulation. Now you're saying, what's up with that? I thought I could say whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted to, in whatever place I wanted to, and whoever I wanted. Not so. The First Amendment does not protect all of that all of the time. Government, even if you have pure speech, government can impose on that speech a reasonable time, place, and manner regulation. You said, okay, I wanted to have a protest right outside the school. Government shut me down because they did not like my message. But then government may say, now hold up now, that's a school. School is in session. We have buses coming and going. The children are trying to learn. You can't be out there with the bullhorns and all of that loud noise and all of that going on while the children are trying to learn. The government may say, this is a reasonable time, place, and manner regulation. We don't care what you're saying. You may say, well, I want to go. I'm going to protest at a federal building. And I want to enter into that building and protest whatever way I want to. The government may say, hold up now. It's not the content of your message that we are regulating, but how are we going to carry on the business of the government with all of this going on in the building? So these reasonable time, place, and manner regulations are something that have to be evaluated carefully because we have to make sure government is not really suppressing the content of the message, but government is concerned about the manner or the time or the place, the way that the message is being delivered. I know that's a big unless, and we're going to talk about that more throughout the semester. Let me give you one more big unless. Are you ready? Remember, the general rule is pure speech is protected from content regulation by the government. Unless, yeah, we got another unless the speech falls in an unprotected category. See, there is some speech where the court has held that it is not entitled to the fullest protection because of the nature of the speech. And so the court has recognized some unprotected categories of speech where government can regulate that speech more. The question, though, becomes, what are these unprotected categories? And what are the tests to determine if your speech is in an unprotected category where government can regulate it more, or whether your pure speech is entitled to more protection from the government? We're going to talk about those unprotected categories for the for the beginning weeks of this semester. In the next clip, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to these unprotected categories of speech where government can regulate more. Look, my goal here is to give my students a little bit more to supplement our Zoom classes, to encourage them to take a soak in the law. But my goal is also here to bring more learning about the Constitution and what the court has held in its interpretation to encourage learning and enlightenment, and ultimately to nudge us on our path toward justice. So subscribe and sign up for notifications so you will not miss a thing. See you soon.